Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to be showing you how I cover up my acne. My skin really hasn't been at its best lately, and I'm just going to share with you a couple of tips and tricks I've learned along the way. First things first, we need to prep the skin. I'm using the Tatcha Luminous Dewy Skin Mist. This stuff is super hydrating and perfect for my dry skin. If you have oily skin, you may want to use something else like a mattifying primer. Next step, we need a full coverage foundation. My all-time favorite, hands down, is the Kat Von D Lock It Foundation. I'm using a brush to apply it instead of my usual beauty blender just so that I can get the maximum coverage out of the foundation. Also, this foundation has a matte finish, which I prefer to help hide my skin texture and acne a bit better. I do love luminous foundations, but they tend to reflect off of any raised areas on the skin, so I stick to matte finishes whenever my skin isn't really behaving. Step number 3 is concealer. I'm using the Maybelline Age Rewind, I think that's what it's called, concealer. It has a super long name, but I really love this stuff because it helps hide my dark circles and also brighten at the same time. I'm using it in my under eyes and around the center of my face just to brighten things up a bit. Just avoiding that big crater you see I have on my forehead there. I do not want to highlight that at all. And then I'm just going to blend everything out with my beauty blender. My favorite thing to use to blend out my concealer. The last step is to set everything and lock it in with powder. First, I make sure I blend out any creases, and then I'm going to be baking just the under eye area with the Coty Airspun translucent powder. I like to pick it up right with the damp beauty blender and just pack it right on, and then doing the same thing on the other eye. While that sits for a bit, I'm going to be setting the rest of my face with the same powder, just with a regular dual fiber brush, patting it in and making sure everything is set in place. Then I'm going to be wiping off any excess powder from the under eyes and also using that to set my lids. Just make sure you buff out any creases before you add powder, because once it's set, it is set. So once you've added powder, basically the base is already done, but I'm going to also be sharing with you a couple of tips on other things we add to our face afterwards, starting with bronzer. So my problem areas where I usually get my acne is right exactly around my cheekbones, right there where I'm putting bronzer on. So I like to use a matte bronzer. I pretty much avoid anything with shimmer in these areas just so that it doesn't pronounce any of the bumps and texture in my skin. Also, the brush that you use is really important. I'm using a really soft, fluffy brush, and this helps blend everything out nicely, but it doesn't disturb any of the makeup laying underneath. Same thing applies with that dual fiber brush. I use it to blend, but it's very soft and doesn't disturb any of my foundation. Next is highlighter. This can be tricky if you have texture around the areas where you like to highlight. First thing you can do is use a highlighter like this one. It's the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Powder. It's not shimmery or chunky, so it's just going to give you a nice natural glow. You can apply this in any of the areas that you don't like to look matte and still not emphasize much texture. The final thing is blush, which is pretty much the same as highlighter. Stick to something that doesn't have like chunks of glitter or shimmer, and avoid putting it in any areas where you have too much texture. And finally, I always like to finish off with setting spray. This takes away that look of makeup and powder and just makes everything look like skin again. That's all for this video. I really hope you guys learned something new and that you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe before you go. I'll see you all next time. Bye!